Hello and welcome to Real Life Regulators Talkback, a web show that recaps the NASA Real Life Regulators podcast. I'm Nick Vonderau, the Education and Public Affairs Manager for the Alabama Securities Commission.
And I'm Rachel Carden. I'm the Director of Investor Education for the Tennessee Securities Division.
And I'm Jeremy Lachine, Communications Coordinator for the Washington State Department of Financial Institutions.
And I'm Chelsea Seiler, Manager of Investor Education and Engagement at the BC Securities Commission. And we are here to talk about episode 1 of the Real Life Regulators podcast. But first, let's talk a little bit about who NASAA is and our group.
Yeah, so for those of you who are not familiar with NASAA, it stands for the North American Securities Administrators Association, and it represents state and provincial securities regulators in the United States, Canada, and Mexico.
And the Life Stages group, for which we are all a part of, produces the Real Life Regulators podcast and the Real Life Regulators Talkback web show that you're watching right now. Our goal is to spread investor education and fraud prevention messages to all life stages. A podcast and a web show are great vehicles to do this. We all bring a different perspective to the case because we are from different locations. We currently have members from legal, enforcement, education, licensing, and registration divisions.
And we also have a new way to learn about each of the episode by filling out the Talkback Tidbits puzzles. And you can fill out the puzzles as you listen to each of the episodes. And you can get the new Talkback Tidbits puzzles by clicking the link below.
We launched Real Life Regulators back in January of 2020. Real Life Regulators is an investment crime podcast featuring real cases of investment fraud. On each episode, we bring in the actual investigators who work the cases. We discuss what happened, what went wrong, and what you can do in the future to best protect yourself from securities fraud. The Connecticut Securities Division was our very first guest, and the title of the episode was The Advisor and the Widow.
The subject of our first episode was a 60-year-old widow and her 20-something-year-old investment advisor. The widow recently lost her husband, and she had an adult-age special needs child. And she was wanting to purchase a house along a bus route to, give her child a little bit more independence. And when she was thinking about taking money out of her investment accounts, the financial advisor was putting barriers in her way or coming up with excuses on why she shouldn't do it. And he was actually trying to talk her into investing into his own company. And he would do this by meeting with the widow every Tuesday at a local coffee shop. And she finally agreed to invest into his company, or at least that's what she thought. She thought she was investing into his company, and he actually ended up taking about $300,000 from the widow and spending it on personal expenses. But this story actually has a happy ending because at the end of the episode, we learned that the financial advisor agreed to settle and pay back the victim her $300,000 back plus a fine. So what did you guys take away from this episode?
Yeah, so that was the thing that stood out to me the most is that she was actually able to get her money back. Because in a lot of cases that are similar to this, that's something that doesn't happen either because litigation is ongoing or the advisor ends up in jail or they've gone bankrupt and they just don't have the funds to make the investors whole. And actually, the unique thing about this case is that it was the financial advisor's parents who were on the hook for paying this individual back, which, is not great for them. But in this case, because of the unique situation, the investor was able to get those dollars returned. And I think that is a huge win for a case like this.
That's such a good point, Rachel. A couple things stood out to me. One being that this is a vulnerable victim, which is something we talk about when it comes to investor education, that this is a widow who has likely been grieving, who is dealing with differences and big changes in her life, and that this fraudster saw that as an opportunity to take advantage. The second thing is how this case made it to a securities regulator. It wasn't the victim at first who thought that they were in trouble. It was the victim's neighbor who flagged that there was an issue. And just a reminder for all of us that reporting things that seem suspicious to your local securities regulator can really make a big difference.
Good point, Chelsea. One of the things that stood out to me was that he told her that he was using her money to to invest in distressed debts, but he was actually using it for his own personal use. He was using it for hotels, fancy restaurants, and even a limousine ride around town. Kind of the red flag that stood out to me was that the victim was paying him directly and not to the investment advisor or the investment company or firm. How about you, Nick?
Well, yeah, so all of those are great points, but the one thing that really kind of stood out for me is he actually defrauded his own parents first. And when you start thinking about that, you start thinking about how can anyone do that? We talked about the vulnerable adult, but defrauding your own family is on a whole different level. And that just comes to a good point. When it comes to money, you really can't trust anyone. You have to verify. If you're giving out money, do your research and research, and just know where your money is going. And so that kind of brings us to a good point of how can someone check out the background of a person making you an investment offer. You can go to NASA.org, that is NASAA.org, and click Contact Us, and then click Contact NASA Member to choose your jurisdiction's regulator. Being an informed investor means having a plan and understanding each of your investments. Whether you're new to investing or already investing, NASA and its members provide a variety of online investor education resources for investors of all ages. Go to nasa.org, NASAA.org, for more information on how to be a wise and safe investor.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for tuning into this very first episode of Real Life Regulators Talk Back. And please don't forget about the Talk Back Tidbits puzzle that you can download by clicking the link below.
And if you have any questions about today's episode or would like more information about the topics discussed, you can email us at realliferegulators@gmail.com. Again, that's realliferegulators@gmail.com.
And to hear and watch future episodes, please make sure to hit the subscribe button below. And of course, listen to the Real Life Regulators podcast by searching for us on your favorite podcast platform.